handle the truth.
The Denise Simon Experience. The Truth Matrix. Vetting, exposing, drilling down to the truth.
Rolling Thunder, this is Hitman, Seat, over. Hitman, this is Rolling Thunder, Seat out.
The Denise Simon Experience. Exposing politics, lies, demagoguery, spin, fraud.
Grid to suppress, Mike Charlie, 4 tree 5, 9er 2 1. Grid to mark, Mike Charlie, 4 7 tree 9er, 8 9er, out.
Promoting individual situational awareness. Question, probe, notice, ask why.
Mark smoke on the deck, 2 rounds HEPT, gas TOT 5-3.
And now, the Denise Simon Experience.
Your signal is just great. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Denise Simon Experience. Very happy that you could be with us. I've got a firebrand on with us. Woohoo! I think it's because of his Navy duty that he's such a firebrand. But ladies and gentlemen, meet Dave Bray, a rising huge star in the music world. Just does some amazing stuff. You can find him over at YouTube at Dave Bray USA. I actually asked my older son, said, hey, you know this guy? And he goes, yeah, Mom, cool dude. I just started following him on Facebook. So, you got a fan already, that you didn't know about, Mr. Dave, but welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Denise. Thank you for having me, and thank your son for having such great taste.
All right. First question out of the hopper here. What is a Sturgis buffalo chip?
Well, let's just say you're going to need a pretty tall pair of boots if you step in one. Sturgis obviously is the motorcycle rally that goes on in South Dakota every year, wrapped around Sturgis. And then the Buffalo Chip is one of the resorts that we call them. There's just basically a giant campsite, ton of fields, and then Sturgis has a little. It looks like a country western town. That's made out there, and they have vendors, and they have bars, and they have burnout contests, and then, of course, they have some of the greatest rock and roll acts in the country. So I was blessed to be able to play there as well. So, yep. I mean, if people want to find out more about Sturgis, that's one thing. But I'm hoping we can talk a little more about Dave Bray USA.
I have to, and I know that you want to. We certainly want to talk about Dave Bray USA. But I was really caught that you when you're not doing the guitar and the singing and the performing thing, you're an auctioneer. Is that right?
I do auctioneering. I have done auctioneering at events. I've raised, I just did one. I do about 1 or 2 or 3 a year, I would say, that are actually really successful, like multiple item ones. But on the side, I do some auctioneering, and then I know that you like storage auctions. But on a side note, I do a little bit of everything when it comes to black tie events. I do the cocktail hour entertainment, which is usually me and acoustic. And then I also do opening ceremonies, which is me singing, obviously, National Anthem, God Bless America. And then I do a lot of the tribute work, along with a little bit of speaking. And because these events oftentimes will have an auction or a live auction, I was asked to start doing them. And then once they realized that I was pretty good, they invited me back to do more.
All right. So you thank you for that. And you did a stint in the Navy. I think you were stationed out of Camp Lejeune. Is that right?
That's correct. I was with 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And that is where I cut my teeth in songwriting. I was the guy who had the guitar on the ship. And, I used to work on writing songs while I was on board and overseas. And it was really a great release for me as a serviceman to sit and take some of those experiences and put them into music.
Well, that's the fascinating part, I think, about what it is that you do, because obviously there's a lot of stories within the military. And a lot of those stories don't have to be military based, but they're personal based, and that, there's a fraternity and a sorority that gets created because of the closeness that you guys have. And so how much of your material and your work is original work?
I would say more than 3/4 of my stuff is original. So, and you bring up a really great point. Not every song that I sing and write about is a veteran, perspective, but I do have some that are. More importantly, I feel like what has been in the direction and how I write and just in general is I take those emotions that I had while I was in the military or in those situations, and I bring them into a song or into a piece of music. And I feel like that is the connective tissue that makes Dave Bray USA different than every other artist. I know a lot of artists that have, sort of gotten lucky by finding that, but I go for that. I go for that heart center. I go for that goosebump reaction with my songs and with my music. And that is what Dave Bray USA is all about. It's about getting that heart and soul, from my pen to my paper, and then for you to hear it in song and be able to tangibly latch onto it and create that bridge of empathy and that human relation that is sort of lost in a lot of music today. And I'm proud of the fact that I can make that happen with people.
I'm reminded, Dave, that, President George Bush, I think when he was president, we never knew that he was a painter, but, he painted an awful lot of war veterans. And those war veterans didn't know that he was doing that until he published a book. And so he was doing a real tribute to them, and he captured their stories in the paintings. But you're doing pretty much the same thing with your music, correct?
Well, here's the thing, Denise. I've seen some of George Bush's paintings, and God love the guy. But I'd like to think that my music is a little better representation of.
I agree.
But yes, you're 100% correct. I've taken elements in situations, and I've just pulled pieces and bits and pieces. It's like a Frankenstein situation. When you're younger, a lot of things fly by, and you don't really take a moment to capture it. But when you go back as an adult, you go back and you really sort of sit in that moment and relive it. It can bring back different memories and different thoughts that end up being really valuable pieces of artistic currency to bring from those times and from those moments and those experiences. And absolutely, that's exactly what I do with my music.
It's musical journalism. I mean, because you're journalizing some of this. Did I get that right?
Pretty much. Very, very close. My new album is called Music on a Mission, and it is a storyteller album. And instead of just being song after song after song, I actually take a moment in between each song, about 2 or 3 minutes, and sometimes it's a bit of a history lesson because I do a few covers. One is Amazing Grace, and some people don't know the history behind that. And then I also do some originals about, soul searching and faith searching and that kind of thing. So I want the listener, because I don't feel like people stop and really take the time to listen to anything anymore. The attention span is so quickly dropped off of anything. So I wanted to take the listener on a journey. When they listen to this record, you're getting an introduction that you would get from sitting and watching a live performance from an artist. Just like when you go and see a band or a musician, and he sits and he explains some things to you before you actually sit and listen to the song, and that gives you all of those little lenses that you get to see through his eyes while he's performing or playing that song. And that's exactly what I do with the album Music on a Mission. And it's available. You get an autographed copy at DaveBrayUSA.com. I'll be happy to send one to anybody who orders. And if they mention that they heard me on this show, I'll do free shipping. How's that sound?
Wonderful. But Music on a Mission then would be endless, wouldn't it?
Well,
I'm thinking that you're gonna do volume 2 through 200, because you're traveling throughout the world and doing things for the veterans and even active duty and then first responders and whatnot. Everybody's got a fascinating story to tell. So I would imagine that you could have 100 volumes of Music on a Mission.
Well, that's a great concept, and it's something that I have thought of. What is actually going to be next? And for the sake of not being redundant and being original in our artistic way, I think that my next step is going to be maybe a step backwards, and just to get back through a lot of titles that I've never quite gotten to the point of production. So I want to be able to move in and out of certain spaces in music without being cast into any sort of type or genre. People I feel like me are the same kind of people that when you ask them what they listen to, and they're like, well, I like some country, I like some rock, I like some hip hop, I like some rock, metal, that kind of thing. I feel like the artist for that listener. I feel like I'm the artist that is more than apt to say I listen to a little of everything. And if you go to, again, my iTunes page, you can get a little taste of how I sing and how I vocalize and how I work the magic on the microphone, so to speak.
Now, do you do a full band often, or is it just you and your acoustic?
I have form-fitted my shows to being either me with just an acoustic guitar. I do me to track. I do me with a full band. I went on tour with Ted Nugent this year and had the full band out there. So it depending on what your event is, whether it's black tie or whether it's a rock show, I can form fit whatever you guys need and whatever your listeners might need for their event to be very, very patriotic, uplifting, and high energy, or very just moving and more tribute oriented. So that's why I didn't want to just typecast myself into being just a band or a rock band or a lead singer. I wanted to be all those things. And that's why I do it in those different directions.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with patriotic music entertainer Dave Bray. Mr. Dave, when you were leaving the Navy, a lot of people that leave the service don't necessarily know what they're going to do in their civilian life. Did you already have this planned out?
I was on a stage in less than 3 days after I got home from the military. I had started playing music directly after. And like I said, while I was serving, I was getting tracks sent to me, and I was writing music to those tracks. And like I said, that ended up being my first project out of the gate, which was sort of a half original and half a cover band. So yeah, I was doing music pretty much the days after I got out.
And this is something, I mean, you get to travel and you get to participate in events going from the sublime to the ridiculous. So I would imagine every week of your life is really very different, correct?
That's a very, very safe assumption. I am. And because, like you said, when you're in a band or in a rock band, what is expected is a stage and high energy and people and, I don't know, a lot of alcohol, a lot of people drinking, enjoying the night. And then, for a tribute act, it's a completely different story. It's black tie. It's button up and pay tribute and, use respect and patriotism in that way. But there's a lot that can be said for each one. And you're exactly right. Many of my events are rock and roll, and some of them are very sort of somber. I mean, I've done celebration of life ceremonies and funerals. So it's a combination for sure.
Now, do you have some kind of a program that, when you do entertain, that people have some kind of a background on you, that they can very well understand the meaning of this song or how this song came about? Because you mentioned a minute ago, they just kind of hear the song, they go, yeah, that's cool. They really didn't hear the words, and then they don't understand what the objective of the song was or the genesis of the song. Would that be right?
Well, I feel like Music on a Mission, the album, again, available in iTunes, everywhere music is downloadable, or you can get autographed copy at davebrayusa.com. I feel like the album is that. So when people have that a tangible thing in their hands, or they can get their hands on it, yeah, I do a very good explanation of what each song is about without being sort of over the top. But again, it brings you in, it draws the listener in closer, and it allows you to connect on a more spiritual level instead of just audio.
In your travels, how many fascinating people and stories do you end up hearing? I mean, sometimes I have a feeling that you leave the stage and you just kind of go, wow, I had no idea. Wow, that's a story. I mean, that just must happen to you, several times a month, I would think.
Well, I've met a lot of amazing people on the road, and I think maybe not on the stage, but off the stage, hearing their stories, hearing their tribulations, their trials, what their life is about, and some of the suffering and pain that they've gone through. Those are the types of moments I feel that mean the most to me, because again, that is a form of currency. When we share and process and download our hardships and our strives and our tribulations with one another, I feel like that's us releasing a currency and a form to one another that just can't be replaced. And that is one of the things I cherish the most about being on the road.
Well, you hit new horizons pretty much all the time in your travels. I would think that, your work would be pretty much endless. Are there any particular events, Dave, that you have done that have been, heart-stopping for you yourself?
Well, I was blessed enough to be asked to sing my original song called Last Call which is a tribute to fallen police officers. I was asked to sing that song for the families of the fallen on the Washington Capitol lawn. So the families were out there. There's over, 2,000 law enforcement officers killed each and every year on average. And so they fly all their family members in every year for those services. And I was blessed enough to be able to perform my original song, Last Call, for them. And those, I just have to say, those moments that I perform for families of the fallen are the ones that are, I mean, they can either make or break you emotionally on stage. And I just try my hardest to be able to convey our sympathies and our condolences through my song and through my music. And those are obviously the most important of all the events that I do every year.
Indeed. So tell us about your website, DaveBrayUSA.com.
So DaveBrayUSA.com. I also do an apparel company called BraveDayUSA.com. There's a ton of support merchandise that you can check out there. Christmas is coming, folks, so let's get all those gifts bought now. I also recently inked a deal with Relentless Defender, who is a patriotic as well as a law enforcement officer who makes his own T-shirts. If you go to relentlessdefender.com and put in the promo code Last Call, you'll get free shipping there as well. So free shipping on my website. If you just mentioned you were on this show, it's DaveBrayUSA.com, or if you go to relentlessdefender.com and check out my Last Call T-shirt over there and purchase some other items and just hit Last Call for your checkout item as well, and you get free shipping on those sites. So that's it for the website. You can also get an autographed Dave Bray USA CD, and we are doing buy one get one CDs all the way up until the 31st of October. So if people want to go to DaveBrayUSA.com, they want to buy something and get a free Christmas gift to pay forward, go and order the Dave Bray USA Music on a Mission CD. We're doing buy one, get one till Halloween night.
I see you've got a lot of pictures on the website. You got the end of watch photo of Offense Terrence Caraway, who lost his life in what I would say an ambush in Florence, South Carolina. Burt Reynolds, happy to see him. That was kind of an unexpected thing. Aretha Franklin. So, I mean, you kind of cover the gamut here, including Boondock Boys. I don't think I've heard of Boondock Boys. Should I have?
This call is being recorded.
Yeah, you did, but that's okay. It happens. It's kind of like pocket dialing.
I have a cheekbone that must be sticking out further than others. So you asked a question about some of the people on my Facebook, on my Instagram, which is Dave Bray USA, by the way, if people want to check that out. There's some really great videos on my YouTube channel that I hope people will check out. The tribute videos for law enforcement, for firefighters, for police, for 9/11, the national anthem I've done, the NRA and NASCAR and other things. There's some really just amazing videos I hope people will check out and get some fans to come check out some of those videos and share those as well.
I asked you about Boondock Boys. I don't know who they are. Did I miss the memo on those guys?
No, they're just a young group of kids. They're very patriotic. I actually know their parents. They live up in Oregon area, and which is very liberal. But these are some really great kids, and they're doing some really great stuff.
Okay, and thank you for Burt Reynolds. He was a big loss for us, for sure. So. DaveBrayUSA.com, and then you've got an Instagram, and then you've got it iTunes. So, you're just kind of covering all the bases here, correct?
Absolutely. And again, I got to point out the fact that I do some amazing work in the video circuit as well. So the video for Last Call is really, really heart-wrenching. And then some of the other songs off of Music on a Mission, Amazing Grace, that video for Amazing Grace is absolutely stunning.
I watched it.
It's got the reenactors from Gettysburg and all that, layover and composite. And then Into the Fire was one I just did with Curtis Boggs. He's a director of photography for Netflix and HBO. So these are some heavy hitters helping me out with my videos. And I just can't thank them enough. Media Red for helping with the Amazing Grace video, and Les Muff for helping with the Last Call video. Those guys are absolutely awesome. Thank you so much for helping me build that content.
So what's your tour schedule look like?
So all the events, or if you could just go to Bands in Town, or if you have a Facebook page, just go Dave Bray USA and you'll look down below, see events, and you can check out all the tour schedules. I'm going to be in Galt, California coming up this weekend. I'll be in St. Louis midweek and back in Pennsylvania East Coast at the end of next week. So those are the next 3 I got coming up. And again, if you're looking for entertainment, you're looking for artistry and something along those lines for your events or for your fundraisers for your nonprofits, please give Dave Bray USA a look. Check me out. Check out some of the work I've done, and give me a call.
Indeed. So give us a little bit of a thumbnail sketch of your Navy career.
So Navy career, start out Dixie Cup Navy. My dad was enlisted Navy. My brother was enlisted Navy. My brother was a gunner's mate. My dad was a spook. I decided to do Naval Hospital Corps School, which I thought was going to open up different doors, but ended up leading me to the Marine Corps. So a lot of people don't know that the United States Marine Corps does not provide their own medical personnel. You have to cross over from the Navy. So I had to go through another, call it boot camp, I guess you could say, basic training to cross over back into the Marine Corps side of the house. Graduated top dog out of that school, highest academic and leadership values. And went on to join the 2nd Battalion, 2nd Marines out of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. I was a stay platoon operator, and that's where everything really sort of changed. Ended up going to urban sniper school, recon and surveillance, and worked up for the MEU and live tissue training, all that kind of stuff. And we went overseas and ended up in Northern Africa for a while, came home. And once I was done, did a little stint with artillery for a while to close out. And then I got out and I started into music.
It was a moment in your life that everybody, I think, really needs to have. I think that it adds to another dimension into people's lives when they do some military service. I think I hear that in your voice. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. And I recommend it for a young kid who may not be 100% sure or ready to take that leap into college, that wants to do something else. You look at the military, some people look at it as, something negative. It's not. It's an amazing opportunity to see the world. It's an amazing opportunity to learn how to become from a young man into a true and genuine man. And, if you gravitate towards the leadership and standing out and working as hard as you can really excel. And it's one of those things that I guess when I look back on, I wish now that I probably should have stayed in. I should have done a little bit more time and served a little longer.
Well, you can't look back at this point, except to, have the fond memories of it all, and certainly the people that you were with, including the Marines. I'm the daughter of a Marine, so I'm particularly partial. Mr. Dave Bray, we're so thrilled that you were with us on the Denise Simon Experience. Ladies and gentlemen, it is DaveBrayUSA.com. He's got a Facebook page. He's got an Instagram page. He's got an iTunes account. I mean, you're all over the place. He's got a tour schedule. Just everywhere. And we're just really kind of, I would say, really grateful for the work that you do for all of those who serve in one form or another, or did serve in one form or another. You've got some big messages, and I think you're capturing the spirit of the hearts of people. You're doing a big service. So good luck, certainly with your tours and with your CD sales and your performance. And come back again.
I appreciate it, Denise. Thank you very much for having me on. And a huge thanks to Scott Husing for, the power of connection and allowing me the opportunity.
He's a big buddy of mine. We talk often, so thank you for that. And ladies and gentlemen, there's more coming your way, so stay with us.
You are about to join Don Newen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an intel analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Newen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Newen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You are now in Don Newen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Check the Talk America Radio schedules for showtimes at talkamericaradio.us.
Let me talk to you, black people. When you vote for blacks and put them in office under the banner of the Democrat Party, please explain to me what black people get as a result. This was not a nap that we have been taking. We are in a coma. You know what the interesting thing about pensions is? That's today's money given to people who ain't doing nothing for you today. Get off that black Democrat tit that they've been sucking on. Your country is being stolen from you, and the promise is being stolen from your children, and they're telling you it's all right while the rest of the world is trying to lap us. Well, why are we doing so poorly? 2 words: teachers' unions. Are you kidding me?
Black Man Thinking, Monday nights, 9 p.m.
Hi, this is Donna Fiducia, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio. For 28 years, I was in the mainstream media, most recently as an anchor at the Fox News Channel. No more. Ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media has completely failed the American people. Radio networks like Talk America Radio will not fail you. Radio shows like Cowboy Logic Radio will not fail you. Check out the entire roster of over 60 weekly radio shows by visiting talkamericaradio.us. That's talkamericaradio.us.
TalkAmericaRadio.us.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us here on the Denise Simon Experience. Oh, baby, we're going to get into a discussion now, and rightly so. And I'm so pleased to have Brian Kolfage with us. Now, Brian, on short notice, he's agreed to be with us, but he is a war veteran, a triple amputee from Iraq in 2004. Thank you for your service, Brian.
You're welcome.
He's the founder of Military Grade Coffee. Yippee! And he is also the owner, I don't even know how to really put this one, Brian, of Right Wing News that has kind of gone dark thanks to Zuckerberg. And so, I think there were at least 800 accounts, but there's a rumor it's even more. But Brian, thanks for being with us on the Denise Simon Experience.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Man, you have absolutely been through it. And ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you that Brian has absolutely been a warrior on this one, and he's going to continue to be a warrior. If he has to take Mark Zuckerberg, I want to see a face-off. I mean, can we, do a fight night?
I'll take him in the ring.
That's it. I mean, this guy and his entire operation are just a bunch of snot-nosed, I don't know what, but you've got quite the story to tell here, and we've all seen that we have been put in Facebook jail for various and sundry reasons, like we're going to be punished by Facebook. But in your case, you've spent an awful lot of money at Facebook. So describe this saga, if you would, please, Brian.
You want me to just describe how it all went down?
I do.
All right. Well, I'll start from the beginning. I was injured in Iraq in 2004, lost my leg, lost my hand. The most severely wounded U.S. airman to survive his injuries. That kind of set the path for where I am today. When I got out of the hospital, started working immediately for the Air Force, and didn't really like pushing papers as a disabled person, and so I went back to school, got my 5-year degree in architecture, It's a 5-year bachelor program. And, from there, Obama was elected president, and that's kind of what kick-started me into some political stuff, and got on Facebook, and everyone was jiving and loving what I was saying, and stuff was going all over the place, and I had a ton of fans, and it just kind of started from there. And, I started realizing, this is my calling. So I created some Facebook pages. Things slowly evolved into other things, and and in the end, I ended up taking ownership of Right Wing News, and another one that I'm not sure if you heard of, it's called Daily Vine. We also have a few million people on there. We're going to fast forward a little bit to this past January when Facebook rolled out the new rules and regulations and algorithm changes, which once again made everyone's reach drop off. And up to that point, we spent over $300,000 in advertisements growing the brand, Military Grade Coffee, Right Wing News, and Daily Vine. And I worked with John Hawkins on the side for many years with Right Wing News, and he decided to go retire and do his own thing, so I took over Right Wing News for him. We use all our Facebook contacts, well, the main one being Biddy Harbith, who was, I think she's the head of global politics or something like that. They fly her all over the world now. A lot of people know her in the Facebook community especially the conservative community, because that's their contact. She's the person who's supposed to be helping conservatives. But ever since they started flying her all around the world, she's kind of turned her back to us and doesn't care about us anymore because she's become a player of the Zuckerbergs, and she likes her vacations, I guess. Once those new rules came out, we were in contact with her weekly, messaging her all the time. Well, I say we, I just mean myself, really. I was messaging her constantly, asking for a meeting to get something set up so we could make sure that all our companies were following the new rules and there was no reason that we should lose our pages. Begging her for 9 months, sending email after email after email, and they weren't answering me, and I was like, this is bullcrap, I've put all this money into this company and they're ignoring me, and I just felt like they wanted us to fail from that point. Why would you ignore a company, not only that, a company that's owned by a severely wounded veteran, and not help them out when you're trying to understand the rules? And they want people to understand the rules. You would think they would.
Brian, hold on here a second. Let me ask you, how did you know that there was a rule change at some point?
Facebook announced it. They put out a big announcement in January that there was going to be a rule changes going on. Well, they actually announced some of the rules, but they're really vague. So they put out an announcement on their blog. I think it's called Facebook Newsroom or something like that. That all these new rules were taking place, and that's how we learned about it.
And when you saw these new alleged stipulations, how did you feel like they were going to affect you and your pages? Well,
we felt that it was going to be used against us because they were so vague, and we kind of saw this coming in a way, and that is exactly why we were messaging Facebook, and exactly why we wanted to sit down and have a meeting. I asked for a face-to-face meeting, I asked for a telephone call, I asked for something. I said, I will go into Facebook and meet you guys there if you want to talk to me. And I have all the emails saved too. But of course, they ignored me for 9 months. And then right before our pages came down, right when the Justice Kavanaugh stuff was going on, they finally agreed to have a webinar with me and some Facebook executives. I don't know how high up they were, but they were just referred to as executives. And so this was supposed to happen. We raised over $600,000 with John Hawkins for Justice Kavanaugh, and right when that happened, they canceled our meeting. They're like, okay, we're not going to have this meeting next week. They just canceled it. We couldn't figure out what was going on, and of course we didn't know what was going to be happening a week later, and it just didn't make sense. I'm emailing back like, come on, let's get this meeting. We want to make sure everything's good to go. Never happened. 1 week after that, October 11th, I believe it was, just like you guys learned about the purge, we learned about the purge through the news too. We noticed all our pages were gone, and just like that, we lost everything.
So when your pages were gone and you went to those pages, what did it say? Did it just says they no longer exist, or they've been terminated, or?
Yeah, it says, it has a little red message on top that our page has been unpublished for like breaking Facebook rules and regulations and whatnot. It's just a generic message, and it says we can appeal it. Of course, we appealed it, and nothing happened. Yeah.
And so, let me ask this question. Between a handful of pages and your business at Military Grade Coffee, you were literally cultivating a customer base too. So explain that one.
Coffee company. The Military Grade Coffee Company, we had 200,000 customers and fans on there, and that's how we reached them. Facebook. People say, "Oh, you shouldn't use Facebook," but you know what? For any business, Facebook. It's vital. That's what businesses use. We use social media. That's how you reach people. I mean, that's how everyone does. That's how it's the whole industry of business ownership is through social media, because that's how you can reach more people. But I don't know what my coffee company had to do with politics. They said they only removed pages related to politics. We never intermixed politics with our coffee company.
There's a little bit of hypocrisy there, because Facebook has a benefit/feature to Facebook, which is called Marketplace. Yep. And you use Marketplace to sell stuff, meaning you cultivate customers to sell whatever it is that you're selling. And if you go over there, you can see where they're actually sponsored ads from retailers over there.
Yeah. I mean, that's and you know what? It's the whole, then the point that they took down my coffee page, I think, is dead proof that this is not about politics. This is personal attack on me and everything. They know who I am. They know I'm conservative. Like, I run this big conservative page. It's an attack on me. Why would you come after my personal finances when it has nothing to do with politics? It supports veterans. We give 10% back to veteran charities with our income. It's all it is. It's a coffee company. We sell coffee on Amazon. We support our veterans, but somehow it's gone. It makes no sense, and it's an attack. This can't happen. Like, if it's happening to me, think about all the people who don't have a voice, who don't have something that they can get out with. It's happening to so many people, and I've been getting emails about it happening to all these different people who have not been able to have their voices heard because they're just, John Doe from small town America, and no one cares about them. No one cares about their story. Mm-hmm. And Facebook.
Where are you now in this transaction with Facebook? You just waiting? I mean, you've appealed this, and you're just waiting to hear. Are they just going to ignore you, or what?
They're ignoring me. They're ignoring the media. And that's just what they do. They ignore it. They think they don't have to answer to anybody, and they ignore it. Even that Facebook, was Brian Amerige, I think is his name. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. He was an engineer who quit over this.
Yes.
He even said Facebook will not defend themselves in the media. They will not do anything in the media. They don't answer to anybody. And that's the attitude that Zuckerberg and this company has. They have the attitude that they don't have to answer to anybody. And we're going to make them answer, because you know what? We're going to make them come into court. We're going to ensure that they get hauled in the Congress and Senate and have to answer and have to show why they did what they did. Because it's not going to happen anymore. They're going to start answering.
Well, when Congress gets a little bit involved, because remember, I think they took down Diamond and Silk's page, and then Diamond and Silk went and did some congressional testimony, and then all of a sudden Facebook came in and defended themselves and said it was a glitch, right?
Right. Yeah. Glitch my butt.
Yeah, but, exactly. Yeah. So do we have to have another hearing with you?
I'm not really sure what's going to happen, but we are definitely pursuing legal action and have some pretty large law firm helping us, and a PR firm, and lobbyists. I mean, we're going to make this big, and we're going to hold Facebook accountable for what they're doing. And whatever these lawyers find, we're going to go after them for those crimes, whatever it may be. We're going to push Congress to look into this and investigate it. And if Congress and them, if they do find additional things were committed that were against my civil rights, then we will take those actions as well. I mean, we're going to hit them from every angle. And that's why we're trying to raise money right now, just to get the research aspect of this legal case going. Just basically get a whole research, not just a document, but just the whole thing going, and then hand it off to Congress and say, this is our findings, this is what we have, and we need you guys to look into this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're doing right now. We set up the GoFundMe just to fund that initial research so we can hand Congress this package and say, look at this. We're basically going to do the work for them on the initial steps. But yeah, I'm going to be relentless and not give up on this. We're going to be hammering them. We're going to be holding rallies. We need people to go to fightforfreespeech.com. That's what the number.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you. Explain fightforfreespeech.com. Explain what you're doing over there.
That is our grassroots. That's where we're organizing everybody and getting everyone to sign up to fight. And you hear about all these like overpasses for America, the 2 Million Bikers rally. All these groups have been taken down by Facebook, and not of them. They've lost a lot of their reach and their ability to do these rallies. But we're trying to get everybody over to Fight for Free Speech and just come under one umbrella. We need email to be able to contact you, and we are going to be hitting Facebook and these tech companies from every angle that they can think of, using every possibility of these previous rallies that we have, from Overpasses America, from all the different rallies, the bikers. I mean, we get to send 2 million bikers to Facebook. We're going to do it. And this is why we need everyone to go to that website.
Last week, Brian, there was some chatter where there were a couple of states' attorneys general, and I think even some politicians that were calling for the resignation of Mark Zuckerberg. And that all sounds good on the surface, but I think even if he was removed, the fight still would continue, correct? I mean, because I think this issue is bigger than Mark Zuckerberg. I think it's in the DNA and in the culture at Facebook, and I would say Google too, for that matter, and Twitter.
Yeah, it's definitely in the DNA. I mean, it's their employee base. It's like a terror. I'm not comparing them to a terror organization directly, but think about it like Al-Qaeda. All those, yeah, you can kill the main guy, but one other guy is going to pop right back up.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a whole army of people who have that mindset, and it doesn't matter. You can chop the snake's head off, and they're going to go.
I happened to talk to a lawyer a week and a half ago about your particular case offline. I was interviewing him on something else, and he mentioned a couple of things, and one is that, the protection of free speech is against the government and not a corporation. So there's going to be a little bit of a problem there unless the lawyers can find some other kind of twist legally. But the interesting thing is to determine if there's any connective tissue between any politicians or any parts of government to Facebook that have kind of a side deal with the leadership of Facebook and or Google and or Twitter. And yeah, so that would be the crown jewels right there. Would you agree, Brian?
I mean, that would be. Think about how much would it be worth to a politician if you could take out and stop their attacks. I mean, how much? It's priceless. It's priceless. And these tech companies control everything. They control what we see. And so there's a very, 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 it can be abused. It's probably one of the most coveted things to abuse if you can get it abused. I mean, these big politicians, presidential elections, if someone can get someone to suppress a certain voice at a certain time about a certain thing, it's going to happen. I mean, it's worth a lot of money. And think about it. Just think about, how powerful they are. It's all about power. And you know what?
It's manipulating behavior.
It's completely about that. And you know what? They're not conservatives there. They're against us. They made it clear they're against us. And I'm sure there's definitely something. There's got to be a connection somewhere, and I think that's why there needs to be a thorough investigation into them.
Have you reached out? You're in Florida. Have you reached out to the estate attorneys general, Pam Bondi, by chance?
I haven't yet, but I've definitely been instructed to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with with me going after Facebook personally, with Florida's contract laws, antitrust. We have some of the strongest laws in Florida for that, and with the money that's been exchanged, and there's definitely a case that can possibly be there for that as well.
Yeah, what's the other part of the hypocrisy in all of this, Brian, is that Facebook uses our data. We put our stuff up there for, whatever it may be, from the sublime to the ridiculous, with our likes and our thumbs up and our thumbs down and our shares and our comments and blah, 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 blah. And then they cultivate that data and turn around and sell it. Yep. But you can't do it.
Oh, no.
Shame on you, Brian. Didn't you know that?
Yep, that's ridiculous.
So you have Pam Bondi, I guess, as a option here. Anybody else in Washington that you've been able to reach out to, perhaps?
Politicians for some reason have not really been too helpful. I don't know if they got a lot going on with elections.
Overwhelmed. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what's going on with that. I have talked with Steve Bannon directly a few times, and some really big political players who are definitely involved in helping me with this. And having those type of people back me has definitely made things easier, helped me get the word out, helped me build this. Having people like Tiffany, she's Tiffany Rugner, I think that's how you pronounce her name. Yep. She's been helping me, and all the people that are coming to my rescue, because I've never done something like this. I had to do a campaign and grassroots, and this is all new to me. So just having to support everyday Americans who are involved in that type of business have really stepped up to help me and help my cause. And this is not really just about me; it's about 800 other pages.
Have you talked with any of the owners of the 800 pages? Or is it really 800, or is it 3,000, or 5?
Your guess is as good as mine. There's definitely a lot, and we've tried to get them all together and figure out who's legit, who really was the bad apples, and we want to move forward with everybody, everyone who is conservative and doing what they should be doing and following the rules. And those are the people we want to represent and fight with. And I think as long as we stay united and have that strong voice together and move forward, all conservatives need to back this, because it's only going to get worse, as time passes. And it really is about freedom. It's about being able to give something on to our children, our grandchildren, and future generations to have, because these tech companies are just getting too strong and too big, too powerful, and way too smart. They're smarter than the U.S. government at this point.
Fascist.
And they're working with our enemy, China. So,
ladies and gentlemen, we're speaking with Brian Kolfage, who is the owner of Right Wing News Military Grade Coffee, and his website, Fight for the number 4, freespeech.com. Brian, have you had a chance to talk to any of the other conservative sites out there, say Daily Caller or Free Beacon, to see? I mean, they're still up, but
no, I haven't been able to talk to them. It's really been a whirlwind over the last week of
no doubt
just hitting the media. It's we've really been focusing on the mainstream. We're starting to get into some of the other pages now, and So
you didn't think you'd be here, did you?
Oh, heck no. Not at all. But you know what? God wouldn't give it to me if I couldn't handle it, and maybe I can be the voice for all these pages that are being taken down, and no one's ever had maybe the story to really get it out there. So if that's, losing my legs, losing my hand means I can help all these people and, take on something like Facebook, and it makes it all worth it.
I have this vision, and you don't laugh at me now, Brian, but I have this vision. Remember Tahrir Square?
Yep.
When we were all trying to get rid of Mohammed Morsi, I have this vision of 800 conservative Facebook users and their customers, those that are fans, and I mean, you had a major fan base at Right Wing News and Military Grade Coffee, that all of you rally around the outside headquarters of Facebook and demand a meeting right there in the parking lot. Don't you think that'd be a good TV right there?
I'm not going to deny that it's not going to happen. But it's going to be. It might be a little more than 800. We might be. We're gonna try to do something like that, but we're gonna make it big. It'll be real big, and we're gonna make sure that it's gonna be so big that the mainstream media won't be able to deny it, and they'll probably be right there with us. So.
Well, you're certainly planting the seeds, and I think that you've got an awful lot of people on your side. Now, we need you to get a little bit of airtime on, say, Rush Limbaugh. Call in over there. He would love it. I know that you've done Breitbart, and thank you certainly for doing the Denise Simon experience. Is your calendar full with interviews?
Yeah, it's definitely it fills up day by day. It's not far in advance, but we're just doing it day by day right now. Tomorrow I'm traveling to Nashville to shoot a show with Governor Huckabee.
All right.
Governor Huckabee, but yeah, so that should be pretty good. It'll be about a 30-minute segment that I'll have in front of a live audience, and then I'm going to meet with some people afterwards outside. If anyone's in Nashville and wants to come see me, that's where I'll be tomorrow. Yeah, it should be good.
So you literally are a man on a mission. How is Military Grade Coffee doing now?
It's doing good. We still, I think
you're holding your own.
Yeah, the Fox interviews helped us out greatly. Being on Laura Ingraham and Fox and Friends, and we sold out on Amazon a couple times, and so everything's going good. I mean, we have the support of the Americans and American people coming out to have my back, and basically tell Facebook to screw off. They're doing that, so we appreciate everyone's support, and that's my primary source of income, and that's how that was a company that I co-founded and was going to pass on to my children, and it was my baby, and Facebook completely took it away or tried to take it away, so they made it personal with that.
Well, you need a big refund of at least $300,000 in ad money from Facebook, don't you?
Well, we're going to get something. I can guarantee that.
I have no doubt.
300 million or 30,000 or something. Get something out of them.
How about you becoming the chairman and CEO of Facebook?
Well, I'd probably shut it down if that happened. I'd run it to the ground.
Well, we are big fans of your work. We are very grateful for your service to the country and continued service, because I don't think that you necessarily planned that you would be on this second adventure, third adventure, fourth. I mean, you had one adventure after another. That you prevail in this, we all prevail. So this is huge, ladies and gentlemen. Please go over and visit fight4freespeech.com. A big hat tip to Brian Kolfage, Right Wing News and Military Grade Coffee. I'm going to keep tabs with you now that I have all your contact information to see where we are with this. And have a good tour over to Nashville.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me on your show. And,
my pleasure.
You are really having an impact with this movement. So thank you.
My pleasure. More coming your way, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us.
You can't handle the truth. The Denise Simon Experience. The Truth Matrix. Vetting, exposing, drilling down to the truth.
Rolling Thunder, this is Hitman. Seat over. Hitman, this is Rolling Thunder. Seat out.
The Denise Simon Experience. Exposing politics, lies, demagoguery, spin, fraud.
Grid to suppress. Mike Charlie, 4 tree 5, 9er 2-1. Grid to mark. Mike Charlie, 4-7 tree 9er, 8-9er out.
Promoting individual situational awareness. Question, probe, notice, ask why.
Mark smoke on the deck, 2 rounds HEPT, gas TOT 53.
And now, the Denise Simon Experience.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us here on the Denise Simon Experience. I've got I thought my neighbor was one of the smartest people that I have ever had a conversation with, but Michael Guillen is with us. He is the author of The End of Life as We Know It, which is found on Amazon.com. And I have found somebody who's, I'm just scared almost, because this man is about the smartest man probably on paper. Michael is earned his BS from UCLA and his MS and PhD from Cornell in physics, mathematics, and astronomy. Yikes! And I'm doing a public apology because I screwed up on a time. So but he's been very gracious to alter things for me. So with that, Michael, welcome to the Denise Simon Experience.
Oh, hi, Denise. And no apology necessary. And thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm really looking forward to talking with you. Great hearing your voice again.
You know, I'm happy you wrote this book because it's something that has been certainly in the back of my mind and not too sure how to reconcile it. And the end of life as we know it is because we have approached some new frontiers in science that are really coming into, I would say, a clash with morality, with some kind of a moral value kind of thing. Some of it I think is okay, but there's a big if and caveat. Was that your intention of the book, Michael?
I think so. Yes, absolutely, Denise. And you know, just as you said it, it was interesting. You cast it in terms of a clash with morality, and I think that's spot on. And I flashed on the movie Lord of the Rings, you know, when I forget which one of the trilogy, but there is a scene, I think it was at the end, when this massive army is marching forward. There's a marching army of really scary kind of monster warriors. And, you know, not to push the analogy too far, I think that's what we're dealing with now. Look, I deal with 4 big categories in the book, so people will understand what we're talking about. First, I talk about the World Wide Web. Second section deals with all the innovations in artificial intelligence, robotics. Third section deals with privacy and surveillance technology. And the fourth section deals with genetic engineering. And the reason I wrote this book was not to scare people, although it deals with some pretty scary stuff. There is a lot of positives, so I don't want people to think this is a downer, gloom and doom and all this. No, there's some real positive stuff in there. But then there is also some stuff that is very kind of, shall we say, unsettling. And yes, I think it's going to challenge us ethically, morally, religiously, spiritually. Absolutely. And that's why I want people to read this book, because I want them to be aware of what's going on. Number one, right, Denise? Let them open their eyes to what's going on. Number two, then they can be prepared for what's coming. And number three, then act to protect themselves, their children, their families, and their communities, not to speak about our nation, because there's some stuff that that can take us in a direction I think most people would not be comfortable with. Let's put it like that.
Well said. Michael, I would say that I'm happy that we have got people in the world that have some kind of, I don't know, limitless vision that they can forecast or concoct achievements that are way beyond the realm of just everyday life, that those abilities exist when it comes to, you know, certain things in science or technology. Happy to know that that is even happening. But the word I used was limitless, and I think that is where we have to be very cautious, because when there's limitless stuff, there's hardly any checks and balances anymore. And If it's all used for the good, great, but that's just never always the case, is it?
Wouldn't that be a wonderful world, Denise? Huh? That would be lovely if everything just turned out like a Hollywood ending, happy ending. It isn't. Give you one quick example, so again, people can get some concrete idea of what we're talking about. This book is full of really interesting stories that I've collected. It's all properly footnoted. There are over 1,000 footnotes, so it's not my opinion. It's not my prediction. It is stuff that is happening right here, right now, in labs all over the world, even as you and I speak. So one example, the holiday season's coming on us. So parents, moms, dad, grandma, grandpa are going to be thinking about what to buy their little loved ones. And there are a whole category of toys now, so many of them, called smart toys. And these are toys, by and large, that have some kind of a computer chip in them, and they do fun stuff. They work through the internet very oftentimes, and so they are part of what we call the Internet of Things, IoT, and I talk about that in the book. One example, there's like a Hello Barbie and a Kayla and Hero watches, but there's one example that I give in the book which involves plush toys, and it works like this. A mom, dad, grandma, and grandpa can send the kid a message. They record it online, and then it gets sent to the plush toy, let's say a bear, and the little heart on the bear flashes red on and off. That means there's a message waiting for you, sweetie. And so you press the bear's paw, and out comes the message. You hear the message that was recorded to you, let's say from grandma. And so that seems entirely innocent. It sounds wonderful. You're connecting the child with their scattered loved ones, wherever they may be in the world. But I tell the story, unfortunately, and this is what you were just talking about. Things don't turn out the way we hope always. Hackers were able to get into this thing, and they were able to find the kids' photos, the recorded messages, the personal information. I mean, this is the sort of thing we need to be alert to, and that's why I'm hoping people will read the book so they'll see what's going on and then find ways to protect them. That way they'll know how to protect themselves. Be very careful about the toys you shop for your child or grandchild this holiday season. That's just one of many, many, many examples I have in the book.
And I would say the same applies to artificial intelligence, because I think, and you need to help me with this, there could be a misnomer such that artificial intelligence is making all the decisions. But humans make the decisions based on the intelligence that's coming to us through artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is not the final authority, correct?
Yes. There's an old saying, GIGO. It's an acronym that's GIGO. It stands for garbage in, garbage out. When you have computer engineers designing these computers, inevitably, we program into these machines our own biases, our own ways of seeing things. So yes, this is what you're referring to. At the same time, Denise, and I don't want to scare your listeners, but you have me on the air just to be honest, and that's what I'm going to be.
Yes, thank you.
There is a day that we foresee, and there's some disagreement about when that day will arrive. Some people think it can be happening as recently as 10 years from now, 20, 30 years from now. We're not quite sure, maybe even sooner. Who knows? But that day is called the singularity. And it's called that because that is the day that supercomputers, artificial intelligence, will become generically more intelligent than we. Okay, so right now computers are really faster than us. They're faster at computing numbers, let's say, number crunching. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about general IQ. Right now, the general IQ of even the supercomputers is not very high. So if, let's say, a genius like Einstein has 125, you were talking about your intelligent neighbor, let's say the intelligent neighbor has an IQ of 100, then what we're foreseeing that is on the day of the singularity, we will have computers that have IQs of 1,000, maybe even 10,000. And then the question becomes, wow, how do we relate to something that much more intelligent than us? Does that not put us then into a subordinate position, even though we created them, we programmed them and so forth? Their IQ now has exceeded. It's almost like the pupil exceeding the master. You know, the master can teach the child for years and years, and then at some point the pupil actually exceeds the master in talent. We see that with Michelangelo, with Da Vinci. They were trained by other artists, but lesser artists we don't hear about anymore. We hear about Michelangelo and Da Vinci because they soared high above their master. So that is something that, that's going to be interesting. I don't think anybody has any simple answers, but one would hope that we don't turn the world over entirely to computers. I think that would be a huge mistake, no matter how intelligent they are.
And then when it comes to medicine, we can do some, and I think a lot of things in medicine are beyond experimental. Certain achievements have been proven successful, but should we use them all? Do we want to have some kind of a genetic alteration such that everybody can practice and determine the future of humanity, because the medicine says we can do that?
Well, again, you're asking an excellent question, Denise. And, in the book, I have a whole section on genetic engineering. And let me just give you one example of what you're talking about. And you have to wonder, is this something we really want to do? And that is, there are these 3 groups of scientists in California and in Minnesota, go figure, Minnesota, that, it's like, really? It just seems so random. But anyway, so there are these 3 groups of scientists who are creating a creature that is part pig, part human on the one hand, and part sheep and part human. They're called chimeras. And these are creatures whose DNA has been knit together using human DNA and pig DNA in one hand, and then human DNA and sheep DNA. Why are they doing this? Why are they creating these creatures that have never walked the earth before? This is a completely novel creature. Because the vital organs, the kidneys, the livers, the heart of these animals will be human, and will then be able to be harvested and then given to people who are waiting for these vital organs. Okay, now that it sounds creepy, but you might say, well, yeah, for example, I had a friend who died waiting for a kidney, so I get it. If we can save human lives, perhaps that's something we want to do. But then you think a little deeper and you think, well, wait a minute. And one of the dangers of that now is that if we knit together too much human DNA into these creatures, you can end up with a creature who has the mind of a human, but trapped inside of a sheep's or pig's body. Now that's absolutely awful. That is like the Island of Dr. Moreau, that horror movie. Where he had all these kind of weird creatures he was creating on the island. That's science fiction. Well, it's no longer science fiction, Denise. And so I think the question that this book asks is this. All these innovations that we're talking about, and many, many more that I describe in the book, are the fruits of human intelligence, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Human IQ. But you and I both know we're not just intellectual creatures, we're spiritual creatures. And so what we need to bring to the discussion, to bring to bear on these innovations, are the fruits of human spirituality. That is to say, ethics, morals, religion, ancient wisdom. I don't care what religion you are, even if you're an atheist. We have to say, look, when human intelligence says, we can do this, human spirituality has to say, okay, but should we do this? So there has to be some balance as we look to the future with these innovations. Here and now. They're not pie in the sky. They're not on the horizon. They're here and now, Denise. As you and I are speaking,
yes.
These are things that are going on in labs all over the world. We have to ask, okay, we can do this, but should we? That's the big question this book asks. But the reader has to inform themselves. They'll get the big picture. Once they read this, they're going to get a crash course. And I write books that are very engaging. They're very entertaining. It's a short read. It's an easy read. It's a bit of a scary read, but you will inform yourself. Then you will have the full picture. You'll have an up-to-date full picture of what is going on now. And then you begin asking yourself, should we do these things? How many of these should we and shouldn't we do? And then you can take action to protect yourself, your family, your children, your community, the nation, to contact your representatives. That's the point of this whole book.
So what I guess what the challenge is, maybe, or perhaps the takeaway here, is the boundaries of trust. And so, I mean, I think we're living in a time right now where we trust very little. But then again, that's in just immediate relationships or potential immediate relationships. But you have to, take a wider view, and then you have to determine what your own boundaries of trust are, number one. But number two, I don't believe that governments are ready to, are prepared for any kind of do's and don'ts or controls. Not that there necessarily should always be those controls or oversight, maybe might be a better word. So you've got several takeaways for the reader in this book as I see it. Did I get that right?
Oh, yeah, yes, you did, Denise. I think number one, I want to go on record is I'm not big on regulations. I'm the kind of guy who I like the government to stay out of my life, stay out of my business. I'm not a big advocate of regulation, but I like what you said, that each of us has to decide what to trust or not. I think that kind of bottom up versus top down approach is the way to go. But in order for that bottom up to work, Denise, as you know, you've got to be well informed, or otherwise you're just going to be some kind of knucklehead making decisions about what you're going to trust and what you're going to not trust, but you don't really even know what's going on. And again, that's why I wrote this book. So get yourself informed and then sit quietly and think to yourself, okay, what can I trust? For example, those scientists who are creating the chimeras, okay, it turns out that they are doing that research against the explicit wishes of the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, which normally fund biological research in this country. But basically, these scientists thumbed their nose at the NIH and said, okay, well, we don't need your money. Keep your money. We're going to go find private funds. And so now, because you have these billionaires, these eccentric billionaires like Bezos and Branson and Musk who have their own who have their own personal agendas, and it's their money, they can spend it any way they wish. And so much of this kind of rogue research is being funded by them. You have to ask yourself, do I trust them? Do I trust that these scientists are doing something that is in the public good? Okay, you're creating vital organs for people who need them. That's not a bad thing, but at what cost?
Correct.
At what cost? What kind of danger are you introducing into the world that all of us will have to suffer from? Do you trust the people, the billionaires who are funding them necessarily? Do they have an interest do they have our interest in mind? And I quote one scientist, for example, he's a Nobel Prize winner in the book, who said, it used to be said that it was publish or perish in academia, but now it's profit or perish. So a lot of these scientists are being funded by people who see dollar signs, right, Denise? So maybe this research is being funded by people who think, okay, well, I can make a fortune selling kidneys and selling livers and selling hearts to people who need them. Now that becomes dastardly. I mean, that becomes sinister. No longer does it look like it's being done for the public good. So you're absolutely spot on, Denise, to say that I think at the end of the day, I'm not advocating regulation. I advocate for people informing themselves, number one, and then deciding what they'll tolerate and what they won't. And then let's see where that takes us. Hopefully that'll steer us towards a great future, not a grim future.
Indeed so. And then it would also challenge, I think, the definition of balance, because what may be balance for one entity or one person or organization or laboratory or boardroom may be a completely different of context for others on what their judgment of balance is. And then, who's the final authority on that?
I think you're absolutely right. And those disparate voices, if they have a civil conversation with one another. So let's say you say, well, I trust XYZ. And I say, well, Denise, I'm not sure I trust XYZ. Let's have a discussion about it.
Uh-huh.
And I think, like the discussion you and I are having right now, I think that out of that discussion, there will be a kind of a clearer direction about where we should go as a society and as a species. I mean, we have the wherewithal to destroy ourselves. We already have that with nuclear weapons, right?
Mm-hmm,
Now, some of the innovations that I'm talking about in this book even up the ante, make life even more potentially dangerous. But they also make life more potentially beautiful and wonderful and more healthy. Mm-hmm. And so the only way we're going to be able to find out which of those directions we're going to take is for people to inform themselves, number one, decide for themselves what they trust and what they don't. And then where there's a disagreement, let's have a conversation about it. That's healthy. And then out of that conversation, I think it'll become clear what direction we want to take. So I think you're absolutely right.
We often talk about what happens in the public schools and in classrooms and those kinds of things, and whether students are being challenged or not being challenged. But what's particularly fascinating is where the world is going by virtue of what you described in your book. It's almost as though we're at the threshold of adults, regardless of age, almost need to go back into some kind of classroom too, because things are affecting generations that are way out of the education system that need to be learned in this. I think that's your ultimate message here.
Oh, absolutely. I don't care how old you are. This stuff that I talk about in the book, I think if I had to guess, I think most people are not aware of it. I think they see little headlines here and there every day. You're kind of like, ooh, what's that? Oh, what's that? What's that? But I don't think they've ever sat down. I don't think most people, and I'm guessing, but I think I'm guessing right, that I think most people have not sat down and had it presented to them in one coherent picture, so that you have the big picture from A to Z. Hey, this is the kind of world. I have a 19-year-old son, Denise. But I almost feel like I'm 19 when I'm thinking about this stuff, right?
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's what you're talking about. And I think that we all have to go to school. I don't care if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s. I mean, this is new stuff. This is cutting-edge stuff. I'm afraid, too, that we're not teaching this stuff in class. Our schools have become so politicized that we're missing out on what really matters. And I think these kids I wrote this book for grown-ups. But I'm thinking to myself as I'm talking to you right now, Denise, I think the average high schooler, even the average junior high schooler,
has no concept.
No concept. And they could read this book. This book is very accessible, and I think it should be required reading, quite frankly, in the schools.
I do, too. Your book is a public service to world, and I would say for a lot of generations to come. The title is The End of Life as We Know It. We've had the pleasure of speaking with Michael Guillen. Thank you so much. Fascinating dialogue. I think it's one that needs to be pursued. So, ladies and gentlemen, there's more coming your way, but big hat tip to Mr. Michael.
About to join Don Newen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an intel analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Newen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Newen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You're now in Don Newen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Check the Talk America Radio schedules for showtimes at talkamericaradio.us.
Let me talk to you, black people. When you vote for blacks and put them in office under the banner of the Democrat Party, please explain to me what black people get as a result. This was not a nap that we have been taking. We are in a coma. You know what the interesting thing about pensions is? That's today's money given to people who ain't doing nothing for you today. Get off that black Democrat tit that they've been sucking on. Your country is being stolen from you, and the promise is being stolen from your children, and they're telling you it's all right while the rest of the world is trying to lap us. Well, why are we doing so poorly? 2 words: teachers' unions. Are you kidding me?
Black Man Thinking, Monday nights, 9 p.m.
Hi, this is Donna Fiducia, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio. For 28 years, I was in the mainstream media, most recently as an anchor at the Fox News Channel. No more. Ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream media has completely failed the American people. Radio networks like Talk America Radio will not fail you. Radio shows like Cowboy Logic Radio will not fail you. Check out the entire roster of over 60 weekly radio shows by visiting talkamericaradio.us. That's talkamericaradio.us.
TalkAmericaRadio.us.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for hanging with us on the Denise Simon Experience. Had to wait a long time to get Sam Faddis to come back with us because he just went on this amazing, long-deserved vacation. So I had to wait and wait and wait. But Sam has been a previous guest, a very good friend, although he doesn't send postcards from his trip. But that's okay. And we're actually going to talk about the caravan, and then we're going to add in the little off-ramp with Facebook. Sam is former CIA. He's still a government contractor in some regards, and just always brings a great perspective when it comes to intelligence. So welcome back, Sam.
It's great to be here. Although, as you know, I did seriously consider defecting to the Italians when I was in Tuscany. And if anybody's noticed that there was a pasta shortage in the last month, that's because I was in Italy. So I did my best to
help that.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let's kind of start off with the Facebook thing, because a very cogent, well-drafted article was published at A&D magazine on the caravan, and then you attempted to boost the post through Facebook, and you were denied. So let's kind of start there before we get into the nuts and bolts of the caravan and all things behind it.
Right.
So talk about this denial.
Yeah, I mean, all I did was write an article where I sat down and, I just went out and did factual research and wrote an article on what that factual research said about who was behind the caravan, with, I should add, effectively citations, where I found all this stuff. And then we have a magazine Facebook page, and then we tried to boost the post, pretty straightforward thing. So, essentially advertised the post, and Facebook immediately denied us permission to do so, and basically said it's too political, and then said something to the effect of they might reconsider, but we had to provide them with all sorts of personal identifying data, which included my social security number and all sorts of other stuff. And I'm like, our Facebook page is not anonymous, nor am I an anonymous person, and who I am and my connection to them and where they can find me has been established, obviously, for a very, very long time. So why all of a sudden they needed my social security number and all sorts of other things? it's just one of the, I mean, it's hardly the worst thing that has happened to people recently in regard to social media, but it's just one of those moments when it becomes less abstract. To begin with, Facebook is this giant stream of data of people all over the planet. And obviously nobody at Facebook is sitting there reading every post.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way they're even aware of the post is that they have some algorithm, effectively they're searching for the content by code words and so forth. And that was my first thought, why are you even aware of the content? I mean, if I wrote an article about child pornography, even if it was just talking about the horrors of child pornography, I would understand why words dealing with child pornography might be flagged to your attention. But why is an article that says, here are the Marxists from Central America behind this march, something that you immediately jump on top of or even focused on? Why do you care, and why are you even thinking about this? This is just a very factual, straightforward thing. And so, I mean, we're still deciding fully how to respond. Obviously, we did not provide them with all the personal identifying data that they asked for.
Remarkable, isn't it?
The social security number. And I just think, it's remarkable. And again, hardly the worst thing that's happened, given that people are banned all the time completely. But it is, honestly, writ large, it's terrifying. I mean, this really is 1984. This is the thought police telling you what you can and cannot say. And in this case, apparently really determined that nobody should talk about the fact that this caravan has been organized by and is being directed by folks who we know by name, who are connected to Marxist Central American groups and directly to Venezuela, which means directly to a regime hostile to us and in bed with the Iranians and Hezbollah, amongst other things. And apparently
Russia.
We're not allowed to talk about that. Yeah, Russia, I mean, all the usual suspects, the Cubans, the Venezuelans, the Iranians, Hezbollah, all of these people, the guys that have organized this and directed it, by the way, by their own admission, have organized and directed it, directly tied to them. You would think that would be relevant for the American people to know that these thousands of people marching to the border are being supported and directed by those entities. But apparently Facebook decided nobody should know that.
And so I guess when we use the term fake news, that now we have to include Facebook, because Facebook is complicit in the fact that they are subjectively censoring factual news on their own platform, correct?
100%. I mean, all these major social media outlets are part of this. And I think we really, as a country, need to have, a real discussion. I am all for vigorous exchange of ideas. That's what the founders believed in. I don't know of a better way to find the truth than let's talk facts and argue this out. This is effectively the modern version of the town square, Facebook, Twitter, all of these guys. And we've sort of allowed them to achieve this kind of monopoly status under the understanding that they were going to more or less let everybody speak, unless you're saying, advocating specifically violence or the same kind of restrictions we have in everyday life. But if they're not following those rules, then I really think we need to think about how big we have allowed them to become. Because the average person, I don't think fully understands that when I'm looking at all of this and assuming that I'm kind of able to see the whole picture, in fact, that's not at all what's happening. I mean, my mind is being warped. My perception of reality is being warped because the guys who have control have a certain political bent, and that's where they're going. And I'm not advocating that the answer is it should be bent in the other direction. I'm just looking for what we're all looking for. Let's just talk about facts and let everybody speak, and then trust the American people to be smart enough to figure it out on their own. But it is scary. It's scary to me every day when I see the latest person that was knocked off of Twitter. was scary enough to me when I saw Alex Jones was silenced.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big fan of Alex Jones, but I just don't understand, why is he not allowed to talk? Are we not smart enough to figure out what we're going to believe and what we're not going to believe of his? Anyway.
And so then when it comes to the caravan, interestingly enough, this second deployment of 800 that Mattis has authorized via the request of the Department of Homeland Security is all non-lethal personnel. And I think they're coming from the 3rd Infantry Division, Fort Stewart. But what's interesting is the people that are being dispatched, and that is engineers, aviation, medical intelligence, and technical support. And I would argue on the intelligence component is kind of where you were going with your article, and that is to say there are some trigger points that are happening in El Salvador, Nicaragua, Guatemala, Honduras that are mobilizing things through telephone apps, especially WhatsApp, that we know about, and that DHS needs some help. So they're asking for some military intelligence components and aviation types, and trying to get to the deeper parts of this, which is what your article was really about, correct?
Yes, but I mean, I think that one of the significant things about the article is for people to understand is, look, I'm an old intel guy, and if you told me that I was supposed to do this the right way, where would I be? I'd be in Central America with 20 guys, and we'd be inside the caravan, and I'd give you chapter and verse. Okay, we should have that, and not quite sure why we apparently don't. I'm sitting here doing 25 other things. A week ago, basically, I'm just fed up with listening to people try to convince me that several thousand Central Americans all stood up simultaneously like zombies with no coordination and started stumbling toward the American-Mexican border, and that somehow food, shelter, and transport just miraculously appears out of thin air, but there's nobody behind it. There's nothing to see here, folks. In the space of a few hours off and on over the course of one 24-hour period, I identified the guy that was the primary coordinator that was on
Fuentes.
Bartolo Fuentes, who was thrown out by the Guatemalans. You look at Bartolo Fuentes' Facebook page, he's a senior official with a party called the Libre Party in Honduras, which is a Marxist party created by the guy who tried to make himself dictator for life in Honduras a few years ago, and totally in bed with the Venezuelans. And I would assume not just in bed with them, but I would assume we have documentation and intel channels that every single one of them is actually being paid by the Venezuelans. And Fuentes, his entire Facebook page for days is covered with posts where he is with the marchers, and he's talking about how they're organizing it, and he even talks about, and then he's actually proud enough of this that he's given interviews after he's been sent back to Honduras by the Guatemalans, where he explained, we organized it, and there were 20 of us at the organizational meeting, and there are 160 of us now with the marchers, and even gives the location where the organizational meeting was conducted, which, by the way, coincides with the timing and the location of where the Libre Party just had their big party convention, at which he's pictured sitting as the right-hand man, literally, to the head of the party. So, I mean, Bartolo Fuentes, off the top of his head, just because he apparently can't keep his mouth shut and doesn't apparently fear any repercussions, on his own volition, more or less provided chapter and verse on exactly how the thing was put together and who directed it. Well, if that much is apparent based on me mucking around doing some investigation over the course of 2 days, one would hope to God that the U.S. government would have much more detailed recitations on all of the telephone calls, emails, names, where the money's coming from, the bank accounts. Vice President Pence talked about this briefly a few days ago when he said these guys are connected to Venezuela, and then they dropped it, and I don't understand why that's the case.
I kind of poo-pooed it myself because Venezuela's broke.
I mean, I think what people have to keep in mind is it's like Al-Qaeda pulled off 9/11 for probably less money than we would have spent on doing the PowerPoint presentation for 9/11. I mean, that's commentary on them and us. This thing, saying people are financing it, doesn't mean it really, in the end, takes a whole lot of money to finance this, but it still takes some money, and more than that, it takes people. I mean, Fuentes, in advance of this whole thing kicking off, was not only showing himself on his social media pages at these conferences and so forth, he was up on his Facebook page, the organizational posters, telling everybody where to meet and when to start the march. It wasn't, again, he's not, apparently fears no repercussions. So where I was going with this was, I think we as a government, ought to be laying out what we know about this loudly and clearly every day. If you want to stand up and support this caravan, then at least you should have to openly declare yourself as siding with Venezuela, Cuba, and the Marxists against the United States government. And if that's your position, that's your position. But you should not be allowed to pretend that that's not what's happening. My own senator in the state of Maryland, great Mr. Ben Cardin, actually formally called the other day, U.S. Senator, for us to assist the caravan in moving to the U.S. border. So I think Ben Cardin, when he says that, should have to acknowledge that what you're saying is the U.S. government should assist a Venezuelan operation designed to embarrass the United States and our allies. And if that's what you're going to say, Senator, then say it loudly and clearly, but don't pretend that that's not what happened. I mean, I think you talk about shaping the battlefield, we should shape the battlefield psychologically. That's where you are. Pick a side. If you're supporting these people, you are supporting Venezuela, Cuba, the Iranians, Hezbollah, because that's the alliance that's behind this. By which I don't mean, by the way, that I think every single person in this march is necessarily cares about any of that. I suspect that there are thousands of people here that are just basically being used.
I agree with you. I don't think the members that are necessarily in the march are Marxists. I think they have been recruited, and it's the plot itself that is at issue. And
yes.
And they just got a whole bunch of willing accomplices, if you will.
Well,
they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, and people get lied to. In Gaza, periodically the Palestinians get people to go and try to cross into Israel by lying to people and telling them that the Israelis have opened the border and you can cross freely.
And you get paid.
And then you get arrested and or killed, and then they tell everybody how evil the Israelis are. And that guy that just got shot himself, maybe, doesn't even have any idea what the hell just happened. I'm sure got thousands of people here who have probably been told, more or less guaranteed, that when they get to the U.S. border, they're going to actually be allowed in. And the guys that are doing this are evil enough that they don't care about the implications of what that means for these families and what happens to them when this all blows up, because the whole thing is an effort to make the United States and its allies look bad. It is a gigantic covert action campaign, what we would call it back in the day.
And so this is looking through the intelligence eyes of a former CIA person, Mr. Sam Faddis, and I appreciate that, because what you have just articulated has been a lot of my own thoughts, but I'm not educated and I don't have the resume that you do. And apparently we are facing perhaps one, if not two other caravans, which is the reason that I think this next wave of deployments of 800 are on their way in some form or fashion to the southern border. Now, Sam, help me with this, because we're all supposed to have real pity and sorrow for the people in Honduras and El Salvador and Guatemala. Knowing what you know about countries that are going or that are in a tailspin or failed nations, there's got to be some kind of solution or beginnings of a fix to stabilize these countries, so these caravans don't have to happen. Does anybody at CIA or at state or USAID or the National Security Council, would anybody legitimately be having some kind of a discussion on how to stabilize these countries?
Well, I think there are ongoing such conversations. Is that within our capacity? There I think is the question, and I would pose a broader question as, the real skeleton in my closet is that I'm also a lawyer in addition to everything else. That's the thing I try to hide from people.
I didn't mention it.
And as a lawyer, therefore, having suffered brain damage in law school, I'm always looking for what is the principle by which we are governing our behavior. Why are we worried about Honduras? Is that only because it's close enough and shares a land border, with other countries that people can walk here? Because we could be having all the same conversations about pretty much every country in sub-Saharan Africa. So if we're really, the issue is, if you live someplace and it's kind of terrible, you get to move here. Then I don't know why only people that can walk here should be included. Mm-hmm. We should be allowing people to get off planes and come here.
Bingo.
Once you go down that road, as I think I wrote in an article a couple of years ago, you're going to need more planes, because 2/3 of the world, 3/4 of the world will be here tomorrow if that is your policy. Billions of people will come here. There will be planes taking off in New Delhi, India, continuously every 15 minutes headed this way. If that's your plan, so I'm all for attempting. I'm not really that hard-hearted. I'm all for attempting to assist other countries to the extent that we can. But I think we also need to recognize that, look, as Donald Trump would say, the first job is to take care of this country. And we don't have the capacity to take everybody here who just lives in a place that's not as nice. So I'm for helping the Hondurans. At some point, the Hondurans have to help themselves.
Exactly. Where is their own loyalty? Why are they not staying and fighting for their... we saw the white helmets in Syria. They're staying and fighting as best that they can for their own home country. Got more Syrians outside of the country, their home country, that are still there. So, there is that faction. The Iraqis at least helped us, or we helped them, with Islamic State. Not so much is the summary in Afghanistan, but you do have some Afghanis that are in, some that are working pretty hard to remove the Taliban and all the other factions that are there. We don't have that necessarily going on in South Africa with the murder rates of the farmers. So, we can go country after country after country, can't we?
Yeah, the entire world. And I'll just throw this in as a gratuitous side observation. If I'm looking at a caravan of people that are thousands of folks who all claim that their country is a hellhole and that they need to move to the United States because this is the greatest country on earth and this is where they have a chance to make a new life, then why am I looking at a caravan of people flying Honduran flags? Why am I listening to people espousing nothing but anti-American opinions? Why am I not looking at a caravan of 5,000 people flying American flags and singing God Bless America and talking all about how they can't wait to come to their new country and be part of the United States of America? Why is this we have to let them in, but simultaneously we have to be condemned? I don't understand this strange mixture of things. I do understand because I know who's bankrolling it and who's instigated it, more to the point. But it certainly is inconsistent with this idea that you are seeking refuge here, that you are simultaneously demonizing us and attacking us. And by us, I mean all of us, regardless of ethnicity or origin, or whether your family came over in the friggin' Mayflower or whether they came here last year. That's America. I'm talking about all of us.
Mm-hmm. And so you got the Ben Cardins, you got the Kamala Harrises, you've got the Governor Jerry Browns, you've got the Rahm Emanuels. So what I guess too, I'm also hearing you say is that we are doing a very lousy job of attaching these sympathizers to the caravan to what needs to be attached. But they also are not talking about the violation of human rights in the country before. I mean, we got violation of human rights going on in the caravan, but there's violation of human rights in the country, which we have in Syria and we have in Yemen.
Right.
I mean,
we don't want to talk. I mean, I'm in regard immediately to the caravan, I would say first of all, again, psychologically shape the battlefield, if that's the right terminology. Let's turn on the brightest lights we possibly can on the information we have so that it is crystal clear that if you are supporting this caravan, supporting the people that are behind it, you are putting yourself in bed with the Venezuelans, the Cubans, and so forth. For the Ben Cardins of the world, that's great, Senator. You can stand up and say whatever you want, but we're going to make sure that this is crystal clear. What you're doing is advocating that we should be assisting a Venezuelan covert action against the United States. Are you still sure that you want to say that? Because, most of these guys will scurry for cover. Mm-hmm. And then, frankly, in that context, I don't think you let any of these people in. I think, in fact, I think what you do is when they arrive, let's close the Mexican border. For security reasons, let's close the border because let's make some people take some sides. The Mexicans talk out of both sides of their mouth on this issue. Mm-hmm. Well, when they start losing whatever the dollar value is per day from what they're gaining from crossing that border, let's find out how much and how entertaining they find this game. Make them decide which side they're on because they also will find this a lot less entertaining at that point. And they will not be willing to stand up in the light of day and say, we're getting in bed with Maduro and Caracas once that choice is made. And you know what? If the Democratic Party wants to go to the polls with the border closed and thousands of people basically trying to storm the border, it's fantastic because I cannot think of a better climate in which to guarantee a turnout that is in favor of the Republican Party and Donald Trump at the polls.
Makes for good visuals. Good video.
Americans looking at that on television and then listening to somebody on the Democratic side of the House talk about how we should be sympathetic. That's political suicide for the Democratic Party. It's kind of like the price they paid for the Kavanaugh thing. You want to stoke civil unrest, you will pay the price politically. I mean, certain elements of the population will support you, but the vast majority of Americans are going to say, I'm not having any part of that, man. That's...
Big round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Sam Faddis, for being with us and your insight. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun having you with us, and we hope you'll come back real soon.